Yes, sir. Back at it again. Back at it like a crack addict, drunk to his podcast in the building for a part. Deuce. It's your boy Yates from Atlanta, aka Wakanda.
I'm the other host, Jerell from Portland, Oregon.
Man, we back on the God talk, all of it. Man, go ahead. What you think?
So
man?
from the continuation, as Yates was saying, our master God is a comedian.
I'll clean you down.
You know what I'm saying? But I mean, that makes sense. Like, I'm just gonna play it off, assuming y'all already seen it. But
if you haven't, go back and watch it.
Yeah, if you haven't gone to see it, but. Yeah, so I think I kind of understand what you're saying, like because like I said, God made humans in a reflective itself, basically.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So, like my friend was telling me, like you got to think that humans are here to experience. We're energy and just matter that's just made up of something that's different than just actual physical flesh. Mm-hmm. So they say emotion is just energy and motion. So it's like we're basically put ourselves here to experience life in a way that we've never been able to feel it while being alive. You know what I mean? That's why we have the flesh and emotions, because this is the only way that we can feel this type of thing. And it makes sense, like when you were talking about God, like seeing itself and like trying to how'd you kind of explain basically like he was thinking like something that he knew of it all but he couldn't feel, but it's also basically almost remind me of like the virtual reality. Because you look at humans, how humans are now, what are we super big on? Gaming, like this whole obviously the metaverse thing is big right now. Creating, of course.
That's like God attribute.
And then now we're not only we're just creating, now we're submerging ourselves into this technology, into this world. And it's almost probably the same, similar, like they say, as humans a simulation, it's going to be God simulating itself, because it's like same way we go into virtual reality, to experience something that we can't experience like this. We create an experience for us to go into to experience. So it's like this of us, it can
ever
be a continuation of somebody trying to experience themselves in whatever form it is, as we can, and that kind of, you can see the real natural pattern, because that's basically what we're always doing as humans, is putting ourselves, rather as acting or movies or sports or just random things that we're just putting ourselves in to like create this emotion for things that we all can't do, like, so,
we're always searching for growth, right? We're always chasing this feeling of more, because no matter what you get, you always know it's more out there. I could give you $1 million, immediately be like, I can get two. I can give you all the cash on earth, you're gonna feel like you're missing $1 somewhere. I could, like, we were literally created to never have enough. And I feel like we look at it like our weakness when it's really our superpower. Like, God created us that way. Personally, I feel like to never stop growing.
Right.
Like,
but I feel like what we attach it to is where the problem is.
No, I feel like even God is ever growing. But I feel like our biggest issue with God, like even my issue and everyone, I feel like we try to put it in a box of understanding.
Right.
And I feel like that's the epitome of what God isn't. Whatever name, God, Allah, the universe, whatever you want to call it, whatever is what made all of this work, what I like to think of as like the clockmaker, it's too complex for us to understand. And if we ever could, we would be the clockmaker.
Of course.
It's like when somebody makes a clock, this was pretty big back in the day. They were like, think of the first person to make a clock. They didn't they literally made the clock and they just let it go. And that was it. They weren't going in adjusting every second for it. Just they made it, and now the clock works itself. It's its own entity.
Right.
Forever. And it's forever moving. Time is no longer like dependent on the clockmaker. It's his own. I feel like that's literally the present we've been given. Like, the deeper I dive into psychology, the deeper I dive into philosophy, whether it's Stoic philosophy or no matter what you study, it's always more. And it's always, and that's like our blessing and curse, because one, that can lead to depression because you can feel like you never have enough, or it can lead to ultimate happiness because you feel like there's so much abundance to have. And it's like this choice, it's this heaven or hell that I feel like we live with internally every second of every day. You always have the option to live in heaven or live in hell. And it's not like, for me, it's not a physical place where you go once you die. It's a moment by moment choice that determines how your life is. Like if you're a person who looks at the glass half empty, always look at life as if you're a victim, always lives in the reactionary part of life, as opposed to the person who's always looking for their blessing, always grateful for whatever is happening, always thankful for the good and the bad, somebody who's always appreciative of where they are. It's two people can live the exact same lives and have two completely different realities based on their own personal choice of how they think. And then we have to get into the question of what is thought.
Right.
Where do thoughts come from? When you think of thoughts really are usually questions.
Right.
And we have to, if you sit down, like I'm big on meditating. So like one thing I love to do is something called float therapy. So it's like where you get in this big float tank, kind of like a big tub, and it's filled with like this special salt and water, and you just lay there in like complete darkness and you float for an hour or two. And you're just, it allows you to go deeper into your thoughts because you don't feel anything because you're just floating. Mm-hmm. And it's like one thing I noticed by going to that space is the deeper and deeper you go into thoughts, when you get past all these questions, because immediately it's like, why is life off? What if I drown? This water's wet. My body's heavy. This salt feels funny. Man, I kind of want to fuck something. Man, did I return all these texts? Did I put my phone on silent? Mm-hmm. Is my phone ringing? I hope I ain't missing no bit. Like, after all these thoughts, like when you can just sit with it, they slowly drift away. And like once I'm at this, and it always go pretty quick. Like time might be a long time, but the feeling always be quick. Like it can feel like 10 seconds and they'll be like, all right, time's up. I'm like, that was 2 hours? Like it happened quick. But there's a point where I stop thinking. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, it's almost like nothing exists.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is the closest you can get to God. Like it's slick better than the orgasm and all that. It's just like this moment of just like
peace and emptiness and just
really just peace. Like it's emptiness too, but it's like this perfect peace. And then like time doesn't exist there. Mm-hmm. And like when you study like yogis or like one big thing of how people would recognize who was like in India and yogis, like some people would kind of be meditating and they would freeze in their meditation for like 40 days, 50 days. So it could be somebody sitting on a rock 40 days, not eating, not drinking, and like in real life where people are going to work and they see this person not moving, and then people will start sitting there and watching, probably like he hasn't moved in 3, and when they come to, they'll be like, oh, you're a yogi, you're a special person. And usually they'll be enlightened once they wake up or whatever. Supposedly that's how it's been recorded. That's usually how people
the astral projection and stuff like that.
Right. Usually or like Buddha's enlightenment. If you study Buddha, like he had the same type of scenario. But it's throughout history or even people living, it's usually a moment where time no longer exists, and after that moment they're more godly. And to me it seems like they were closer to God in that space that just changed them to a degree that usually they can't really explain what happened. It's just like whether it's you talk about the Bible and Paul getting knocked off the horse and now he's a Christian when he was just crucifying saints. You talk about Buddha in the forest. You talking about throughout many religions. You talk like it's there's always this chase of something deeper, and I feel like that is the joy of life, to always be chasing and always be growing in all areas of your life.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
No, that makes perfect sense. But I mean, I think that's definitely how humans are wired, just to, destined for perfection, just because, like, I don't know, we just come from a creator of perfection in a sense, so maybe that could be it. But yeah, man, it's a big ass wonder for sure.
I feel like one big fault in that though is we're always trying to grow, right? And I feel like the only times when you're really depressed is when you're not growing. Like it's hard to be sad when you're growing.
Yeah.
Like I feel like usually when things don't feel like they're going right, you're no longer growing. Whether you've accomplished what you was chasing or you've hit the pin. Like let's say you're a fitness person and you've gotten big as you feel like you can get. You've done the hardest of the hard. Like it's just like astronauts. Like one big phenomenon. They say a lot of astronauts when they come back from the moon are extremely depressed because they feel like there's nothing else to do. Like it's like I accomplished my greatest goal and there's nothing else bigger I can do. And life like usually goes down for them after that moment, especially mentally and emotionally. And it's just like the need to be ever growing is the luxury of life.
Right.
Depending on how you look at it. Either it's the ultimate gift or it's this heaven or hell, man.
Yeah.
What you think on my idea of like heaven and hell? Like,
No, I perfectly agree with that. I definitely think it's like I feel like it is a place, but not necessarily like, demons with fucking whips and chains or something, but I feel like it's like a energetic place, like a based on like your spirit or something like that, like the weight of your spirit. Like they talk about like light and when I was always talking about light, light can mean like obviously lights, or it can actually mean just like the weight. And I feel like that's kind of like, the negative and positive energy. Like you move a certain way, like even after you die, your energy is still a certain type of presence. So it's like if you die with a certain type of dense level of energy or dark energy, it's like your energy may move this direction versus your light being light, and extending, as they say.
Sounds very Egyptian.
Huh?
Sounds very Egyptian.
And your light like extending, and like moving up, or in a sense of just different directions. I just feel like that's kind of more so to heaven and hell, and that attaches to like, in the physical realm, like, good experiences and bad experiences, or not even necessarily good or bad, but this and that. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like heaven and hell is like always almost like a choice of good and bad. And it was like me and my homie was talking about, there's only two different types of people in the world. It's like agreeable and disagreeable. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like most people who do.
But you could be disagreeable and still be a good person.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I said there's no such thing as good. That's what I was saying. I wasn't saying that's like good or bad. It's just agreeable or disagreeable. It's not necessarily a characteristic. Are you a good person or a bad person? It's just the two types of people. Like, you know what I mean? Like decisions that people make are based on if they agree with necessarily a rule or a topic of survival or life. That's how most people make decisions. If in their mind, in somebody's mind who fucking is a criminal and he's a full-time criminal, it's like, yeah, I grew up, fuck the system, blah, blah, blah. In his mind, he disagrees with how he thinks that the status quo should be him living. You know what I'm saying? Versus somebody else who grew up in a certain different type of life who thinks life should be like this. The only two different things about the people is agreeable and disagreeable. What you don't disagreeable what you think. You know what I mean?
I don't want to argue that point because I get what you're saying. But then you start getting into the hierarchy of needs, and like same person, same scenario can make two different decisions.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying with agreeable and disagreeable. I agree. But to me, that goes right back to the thought of positive and negative.
But that's what it is though.
So you saying like
we put positive and negative on what we think is negative, but what is actually negative? Negative has power to it. Negative has value to it. You know what I'm saying? Just as much as positive does. A battery doesn't work with only positive. You know what I'm saying? Same situation. It needs a negative to get a charge. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's a necessary evil. Like it's the yin and the yang. It's the two opposite coins that makes it whole. Like
because without it, you wouldn't appreciate it.
Yeah, and it's also just impossible.
Well, I mean, I feel like it's only impossible because without the other, essentially
You
wouldn't
can't
exist.
compare it to anything.
Exactly. So
Exactly.
if you have no comparison, it's almost like it doesn't exist. Like a lot of colors, like a lot of colors in the world, we actually cannot see
Right.
because we don't have the language to describe the color. Our brain literally will make you blind to that color.
Right.
Like there are places in the world where you can go and you can say green, and they really can't see green. It's like you can hold it in front of them, but what they see will be comparable with their vocabulary. So it's almost like we live in a video game, man.
That's what I'm saying. It's an experience that God's blessed so you can be able to go through and feel it. But I don't know.
So what happened?
But I also don't think that somebody I also don't have this feeling that somebody just also created. I think it's a natural, organic phenomenon that
So where does it start?
No, it has no start. Like I said, God has no beginning nor end. You
So-
know what I'm saying? That's what it says in the Bible. You know what I'm saying? There's no beginning nor end. You know what I mean? It's like a current of like, remind me of that movie fucking, damn, what movie was that? Might have been The Rival or something. Maybe, the Tomorrow War. When he was describing like how time's like a current and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And you can only move down the current because it's always like, it's almost like it's harder to go against time because it's like impossible. So the only thing you can do is just kind of step out of it as it goes by. And I feel like it's just like we live in this stream of just time and existence where we're just being born in a certain part of time, and then that's just how it's always been. It's like we're just hopping on this trail of just existence, and then as life keeps coming, it's like this forever like current band of just existence that has always been flowing.
We might have to do a part 3, because now I'm thinking
like
time.
It's like a flowing of time.
Like you could go back in time, you could go forward in time. Like
because you talking about God,
What
my thing
is
is
time?
like oh he just created, so there's nothing. But even before then, time was him existing. Like so, it's like kind of like how did time exist? Like it just the time that it took for him to think about making something.
See, that's my whole thing.
You know what I'm saying?
If you
you talking about the time for him putting it there, what about the time?
See, now
before he even thought
now
about
we're
that?
getting
Like, time is
into
running before that.
Now we're getting into the depth of the idea that you are God. Because if there's no beginning and everything's just a continuation, then it's like, then you have to be an extension of it all.
Like you say, some people say you're gods with amnesia. You know what I'm saying? That makes sense to the thing that you said about making
Put you
yourself
down.
forget.
And when you start studying religion, it's very consistent in all of the literature. Like Jesus Christ, supposedly based on the Bible, said, "Ye are gods." Like as he was questioning, almost like, "Are you idiots for not knowing it?" Like it's the
He is I and I am him.
like
You know what I'm saying? Like I mean,
it's a lot we can go from here. We might need to, you want to do a part 3?
we'll get into the time.
All right, boo. All right. So tune in for a part 3. This is gonna be our first part 3. We're gonna part 3 this motherfucker. See, we usually talk about hoes and why these bitches like, man. See, you talk about stuff like this with a woman you care about,